They thought I was a fool, but I just signed their sentence. I never thought I'd be celebrating an $8 million bonus at 42 years old. But life takes weird turns when you redesign logistics systems that save Fortune 500 companies $15 million annually. My wife Ashley insisted we do the whole celebration at our house in Plano. Professional caterer, bartender mixing cocktails with names like The Optimizer and Supply Chain Sling, and enough artisanal cheese to fund a small startup. She said people expected me to give some emotional speech about innovation and believing in yourself when nobody else did. The living room was packed with people who wouldn't have returned my call 6 months earlier when I was just another mid-level manager grinding through spreadsheets and supply chain bottlenecks. These were the same folks who called my AI integration project Brandon's expensive experiment when I was 3 years into development, working in my home office at 2 a.m., eating takeout and debugging algorithms that kept crashing. Now, suddenly, they were all acting like my biggest supporters, sending congratulatory texts and showing up with fake enthusiasm. But, whatever. I'm allowed to be magnanimous now that I'm rich enough to pretend I don't remember who suggested I stick to traditional methods. Everything was fine until right before the toast. I was standing in our bedroom, grabbing my lucky cufflinks from the dresser drawer. The silver ones Ashley bought me for our 5th anniversary. That's when I saw something that changed everything. Ashley was sitting at my desk in our bedroom office, the one where I'd spent countless nights perfecting the logistics algorithm. She had my laptop open, and I could see the blue glow reflecting off her face in the darkened room. She was supposed to be downstairs hosting, making sure everyone had drinks and appetizers. But there she was, hunched over my computer like she was conducting surgery instead of celebrating her husband's success. I stayed in the doorway, watching. She pulled a black USB drive from her purse. Not one of mine, something sleek and new that I'd never seen before. She plugged it in, and I watched her fingers fly across the keyboard with the confidence of someone who'd done this before. Not tentatively, not like someone exploring, like someone executing a plan. The screen lit up with what looked like banking interfaces, multiple windows, account numbers, transfer protocols. I recognized the Chase Business Portal immediately. That's where my bonus was deposited 3 days ago. All $8.2 million of it, sitting in our joint business account, while I figured out investment strategies and tax implications. I'm not a paranoid person by nature. I don't check Ashley's phone or worry about her shopping with friends or think every late meeting is an affair. But when your wife of 12 years is conducting covert financial operations on your laptop at 11 p.m. during your own celebration party, that's not innocent curiosity. That's premeditated theft. And then I saw it. 3 words that changed my entire world. Transfer complete. The confirmation message flashed green across the screen. Below it, transaction details. 628,100,000 be transferred from Caldwell Logistics Solutions to an account number I didn't recognize. My chest went cold. My hands started shaking. But I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't make a sound. Rule number 1 in the Handbook of Discovering Your Wife is stealing millions. When they think you're not watching, keep watching. Ashley closed the laptop, pulled out the USB drive, and slipped it back into her purse. She stood up, smoothed her dress, and checked her reflection in the dark window. Then she walked past me in the doorway, like nothing had happened, heading downstairs to rejoin our guests. "There you are," she said, touching my arm as she passed. "People are asking about the toast." I stood there for another 30 seconds, processing what I'd just witnessed. My wife had just stolen $6 million from my bonus during my own celebration party. While our friends waited downstairs with champagne glasses raised in my honor, the toast was surreal. Everyone gathered in the living room, Ashley front and center with that radiant smile she wears when she's performed perfectly. She was glowing, laughing at jokes, playing the supportive wife role with Oscar-worthy conviction. People were making speeches about innovation and the American dream and other buzzwords that sounded like LinkedIn motivational posts. I smiled and nodded and said the right things, but internally I was thinking one clear thought. So, we're doing grand larceny before dessert. This is the timeline we're in. I made it through the party on autopilot, shook hands, accepted congratulations, promised to stay in touch with people I hope to never see again. The whole time, I was building a case in my head. Evidence, timeline, motive. Because yelling gets you drama and crying gets you sympathy. but documentation and strategic planning get you justice. After everyone left around midnight, Ashley was buzzing with energy. She said what an amazing night it was, how proud she was, how this was just the beginning of our new life. She was already talking about the house in Colorado we'd discussed, the European vacation, the investment opportunities. Our new life, built on money she'd just stolen. I told her I was exhausted and went to my office. First thing I did was check our business account. Sure enough, $2,000 remaining out of $8,200,000. The transfer had gone to an account at Wells Fargo under the name DHK Holdings LLC. I'd never heard of DHK Holdings, but I had a pretty good idea who the D, H, and K might be. I spent the next 3 hours doing financial archaeology. Ashley's mother, Dorothy, had been a bank operations manager for 15 years before retiring. She knew wire protocols, international transfers, how to set up shell companies. Ashley's brother, Kevin, was a financial advisor currently under SEC investigation for misappropriating client funds. He needed money fast, and he had the expertise to move it quietly. The picture became crystal clear. This wasn't impulsive theft. This was a coordinated family operation, probably planned since the day my bonus was announced 6 weeks ago. They'd set up the LLC, established banking relationships, waited for the money to hit, then executed their plan during the chaos of a celebration party when I'd be distracted and emotional. Brilliant, actually. If I hadn't walked upstairs at exactly the wrong moment, I might not have discovered it for weeks. By then, the money would be scattered across multiple accounts, possibly offshore, definitely untraceable. But I did see it. And now, they were going to learn the difference between stealing from some random mark and stealing from a man who redesigns systems for a living. The next morning, I called my attorney, Harrison Webb, who'd handled our business incorporation and patent work. I told him everything: the party, the transfer, the USB drive, the timeline. He listened without interrupting, which is why I pay him $400 an hour. When I finished, he said, "We're going nuclear, music to my ears." Harrison explained that we needed to move fast but carefully. Wire fraud is federal, grand larceny is state, and conspiracy involves multiple parties. If we played this right, Ashley and her family wouldn't just lose the money. They'd face serious prison time. First step: preserve evidence. Harrison sent a forensic IT specialist to my house that afternoon. A woman named Lisa Foster, who looked like she should be teaching middle school math, but apparently spent her time catching white-collar criminals. She imaged my laptop's hard drive, recovered deleted files, traced network activity, and found enough digital fingerprints to convict a small army. The USB Ashley used? It contained sophisticated banking software and pre-configured transfer protocols. This wasn't some last-minute crime of opportunity. They'd been planning this for months. Second step: financial lockdown. Harrison had our remaining accounts frozen pending investigation, set up new accounts Ashley couldn't access, and put fraud alerts everywhere. Then we did something beautiful. We created a honeypot. I opened a checking account at Chase with exactly $100. To anyone looking at paperwork, it appeared legitimate and active. It just contained enough money to buy lunch at Subway instead of millions. Harrison drafted official-looking documents showing this as my primary liquid account, complete with fake statements showing regular deposits and a growing balance. We left these documents in my home office filing cabinet, right where someone desperate and greedy would look. The trap worked faster than I expected. That night, Ashley suggested we celebrate privately with champagne and dinner at home. Just the two of us, she said, to really appreciate this moment. She was trying to get me relaxed and distracted while her family figured out how to access more money. Around 9 p.m., I went to my office to check emails. Really, I was activating the hidden camera Lisa had installed in my bookshelf. At 9:30, motion alerts started pinging my phone. There was Ashley standing at my filing cabinet with her phone out, photographing every document in the confidential financial folder. She was systematic, making sure she got clear shots of account numbers, routing information, and authorization codes. She had no idea she was creating a perfect evidence trail of attempting to access protected financial accounts without authorization. My phone pinged again 30 minutes later. Alert from the honeypot account. Failed login attempt from an unknown device. Someone had tried to access the $100 account using credentials from the fake documents. They'd attempted to initiate a transfer of $50,000, probably testing to see if they could move money without triggering alerts. The beauty of it was simple. They thought they were stealing from a $100 account, but they were actually confessing to attempted grand larceny while being recorded by multiple federal-grade security systems. I called Harrison, sent him the footage, and said, "Got them." The next morning, Ashley was making coffee like everything was normal. She suggested we start looking at real estate in Colorado, maybe take a long weekend to scout locations. She was trying to get me out of state, away from my security systems and legal team, somewhere remote where, if something happened to me, it would look like an accident. I told her maybe that I had some business loose ends to tie up first. She smiled, but I could see calculation behind it. Her timeline was slipping. Harrison contacted Detective Sarah Rodriguez from Financial Crimes. When Rodriguez arrived at my house with 2 federal agents, I showed them everything. The laptop footage of the original theft, Ashley's surveillance activities, the honeypot attempts, the LLC documentation connecting Dorothy and Kevin, and financial records showing months of preparation. Rodriguez took it all as evidence and told me to be extremely careful. Don't eat or drink anything Ashley prepared. Don't go anywhere isolated with family members. And definitely don't travel out of state until arrests were made. The investigation moved quickly. Federal agents traced the DHK Holdings LLC back to a UPS store mailbox rented by Kevin 3 months ago. Dorothy's fingerprints were all over the incorporation documents. Ashley's phone records showed dozens of calls to both of them in the weeks leading up to the party, plus internet searches that read like a how-to guide for financial fraud. Spousal asset protection strategies, husband incapacitation legal options, wire transfer detection, avoidance, international banking non-extradition. My personal favorite was how long before missing person declared legally dead Texas. Because apparently if stealing $6 million wasn't enough, they were also considering making me disappear permanently. A few days later, Harrison suggested we set up one final demonstration. A meeting at Chase where Ashley would attempt to access accounts using information from the fake documents. It would be the perfect opportunity to catch them in the act with federal agents as witnesses. The meeting was scheduled for Wednesday morning. I called Ashley the night before and told her I was ready to start moving money into safer investments. I said I wanted her involved in all the financial decisions going forward, that this windfall belonged to both of us. She practically purred with satisfaction, saying she was so glad I was finally thinking clearly about our future, the one where she'd stolen most of my bonus and was planning my disappearance. Wednesday morning arrived gray and drizzly, perfect weather for destroying someone's life. Ashley showed up at the Chase branch looking like a woman about to inherit millions. She wore her best suit, the navy blue Armani she'd bought for important meetings, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who thought victory was guaranteed. Dorothy arrived 10 minutes later, looking every inch the retired banking professional in her tailored blazer and pearls. She hugged Ashley like they were attending a graduation instead of committing federal crimes. Kevin came last, checking his phone constantly and looking around the lobby like he expected trouble. They should have expected trouble. They were walking into a carefully orchestrated federal sting operation. We all gathered in the bank's conference room, a glass-walled space overlooking the main floor. The branch manager, who'd been briefed by federal agents, welcomed us with professional courtesy. Ashley introduced Dorothy and Kevin as her financial advisors who would help manage our newfound wealth. I played my role perfectly, the trusting husband grateful for his wife's guidance. I signed document after document that Ashley thought would give her complete access to my accounts. Power of attorney forms, investment authorizations, beneficiary changes, everything needed to legally steal millions. Dorothy was doing most of the talking, explaining how they'd diversify my portfolio and ensure proper asset protection. She used banking terminology with the casual expertise of someone who'd spent decades moving other people's money. Kevin kept nodding and making notes, playing the part of a legitimate financial advisor instead of someone under federal investigation. Ashley sat there glowing like Christmas morning, already spending money she thought belonged to her. Every few minutes, she'd touch my hand or smile at me with what looked like genuine affection. It was a masterful performance if you ignored the fact that she was planning to bankrupt and possibly murder me. The paperwork phase took about 30 minutes. Then came the moment of truth. Ashley cleared her throat delicately and said it was time to make our first strategic transfer. She suggested moving $400,000 to a high-yield account that Kevin had recommended. Just a test transaction, she said, to make sure all the systems were working properly. The branch manager nodded professionally and began typing on his computer. He asked for the source account information, and Ashley provided the routing numbers from the fake documents I'd left in my filing cabinet. Numbers that led to an account containing exactly $100. Perfect, the branch manager said, looking at his screen. That would come from account ending in 7394 with a current balance of $100. The silence that followed was absolutely beautiful. You could hear Ashley's brain short-circuiting, trying to process how her brilliant master plan had just collapsed into pocket change. Her smile didn't just falter, it disintegrated completely, replaced by a look of pure confusion. Dorothy leaned forward, asking if there was some mistake. Kevin started pulling out his phone, probably to check his own accounts. Ashley just stared at the branch manager, like he'd announced that gravity had been canceled. That's when Detective Rodriguez walked through the conference room door. She was followed by 2 federal agents and the bank's fraud investigator, all wearing expressions of professional satisfaction. Rodriguez thanked Ashley for providing such a clear demonstration of intent to commit wire fraud in a federally insured financial institution. Makes the paperwork so much easier, she said, pulling out handcuffs. Ashley's voice cracked as she protested that this was all a misunderstanding, that I was confused and didn't know what I was signing. Her performance had shifted from confident conspirator to innocent victim in about 3 seconds. I slid Harrison's neurocognitive assessment across the conference table. Official documentation from an independent psychiatrist, stamped and notarized, proving that I was mentally competent, legally sound, and fully aware of every action I'd taken. Rodriguez arrested Ashley for wire fraud, attempted grand larceny, conspiracy to commit financial crimes, and about 6 other federal charges that each carried serious prison time. Dorothy got handcuffs for conspiracy and money laundering. Kevin received the same treatment, plus additional charges related to his ongoing SEC investigation. As the federal agents led them away, Ashley looked back at me with an expression I'll never forget. Not anger, not fear, pure disbelief. The look of someone who'd been absolutely certain of their own cleverness, only to discover they'd been outplayed by the fool husband they thought they were manipulating. Dorothy was muttering something about constitutional rights and illegal entrapment, apparently forgetting that she'd spent 15 years in banking and knew exactly how wire fraud investigations worked. Kevin was already asking for his lawyer, which was probably smart, considering the mountain of evidence federal agents had compiled. Ashley said nothing. She just kept staring at me as they walked her through the bank lobby, past the tellers and customers who'd witnessed her arrest. I think that's when it finally hit her. Not just that she'd been caught, but that I'd known all along and had been planning her downfall while she thought she was planning mine. The next few months were a masterclass in federal prosecution. Ashley's legal team tried everything: diminished capacity, spousal coercion, entrapment, claiming I'd manipulated her into committing crimes. None of it worked because we had everything documented. The digital forensics were devastating. Lisa Foster had recovered deleted files showing months of planning, including detailed financial projections of how they'd split my bonus money. Ashley had even created spreadsheets calculating living expenses in non-extradition countries, which suggested they were planning to disappear permanently after draining my accounts. Phone records showed the conspiracy went back almost a year. Dorothy had been researching conservatorship laws, looking for ways to have me declared mentally incompetent. Kevin had consulted with offshore banking specialists and cryptocurrency conversion services. This wasn't just theft. It was a comprehensive plan to destroy my life and steal my future. The prosecution presented evidence in chronological order, building a timeline that was impossible to dispute. First contact with LLC formation services, research into banking protocols, consultation with international transfer specialists, purchase of sophisticated financial software, and finally, execution during my celebration party when they thought I'd be too distracted to notice. Ashley's search history was particularly damaging. Beyond the obvious financial crime research, she'd also looked into life insurance policies, accident investigation procedures, and something called widowhood financial planning. The implication was clear. If stealing my money hadn't worked, they had backup plans that involved making sure I wouldn't be around to report the theft. The judge wasn't sympathetic to any of their arguments. During sentencing, he said this was exactly the kind of sophisticated financial crime that federal laws were designed to prevent. Ashley received 8 years in federal prison. Dorothy got 5 years for her role in the conspiracy. Kevin received 12 years because of his prior financial crimes and the scope of his planning. After the sentencing, Ashley's lawyer approached Harrison about appealing. Harrison politely explained that federal wire fraud convictions with this level of evidence rarely get overturned, especially when the defendants had documented their crimes so thoroughly. Sometimes the best legal advice is accepting reality. I walked out of that courthouse feeling something I hadn't experienced in months. Genuine peace, not satisfaction, not vindication, just the quiet confidence that comes from seeing justice served properly. Ashley and her family had tried to destroy my life, and instead, they'd destroyed their own. That evening, I poured myself a bourbon from a bottle I'd personally opened and sealed, sat in my home office where this whole nightmare had started, and finally allowed myself to relax. Emma, who'd been staying with my sister during the worst of the investigation, came home that weekend. She asked if everything was okay now, and I could honestly tell her yes. The house is different without Ashley, obviously. Quieter, but in a good way. Emma and I have grown closer through all of this. She's smart enough to understand that her mother made terrible choices, but young enough that the whole experience hasn't made her cynical about people. We talk more now, about school and friends and her plans for college. Normal father-daughter conversations instead of careful discussions around someone else's schemes. My neighbor Mrs. Patterson brought homemade cookies last week. Oatmeal chocolate chip, Emma's favorites. I accepted them without checking for signs of tampering or ulterior motives. It's amazing how paranoid you become when someone close to you proves they're willing to poison your life, literally and figuratively. Getting back to normal human trust takes time. The algorithm that earned me the original bonus has turned into something bigger than I expected. 2 more Fortune 500 companies have licensed the system, and a third is in negotiations. Total projected value over the next 5 years, $47 million. Ashley will be out of federal prison just in time to read about it in the business section of whatever newspaper they have in halfway houses. There's irony in that timing. If she'd just been patient, if she'd trusted that we were building something together instead of scheming to steal what I'd already built, she could have been part of something incredible. Instead, she chose greed over partnership, theft over patience, and destroyed not just our marriage, but her entire future. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't walked upstairs at that exact moment. If I'd stayed downstairs playing the perfect host while Ashley executed her plan in my office. Would I have noticed the missing money eventually? Would she have convinced me I was losing my memory, becoming unreliable, needed professional help managing my affairs? The Golden Birch lifestyle community brochures I found in Ashley's car after her arrest suggested that was exactly the plan. Luxury-assisted, living for people with cognitive concerns and financial management challenges. The entry fee was $400,000 with monthly costs. That would have drained my remaining accounts within 2 years, and buried in the fine print, mandatory power of attorney for all residents. It was a perfect trap. Get me declared mentally incompetent, move me into an expensive facility where I couldn't leave without permission, then systematically drain every account I'd ever opened. Within 5 years, I would have been broke and institutionalized, while Ashley lived off my life's work. If I'd become inconvenient or started remembering too much, well, elderly people in care facilities die from accidents all the time. The FBI found detailed financial projections for this scenario in Kevin's files. They'd calculated that between my bonus, savings, retirement accounts, and the projected licensing revenue from my algorithm, they could extract about $60 million over a decade. Not bad for a family of amateur criminals who thought they were smarter than a systems engineer. But I did walk upstairs. I did see those 3 words on the screen. And instead of becoming their victim, I became their worst nightmare. Someone with the resources, intelligence, and patience to methodically destroy them using their own greed as the weapon. The federal prosecutor told me this case would be studied in white-collar crime courses for years. Not because of the sophistication of the crime, family members stealing from each other is hardly unusual, but because of how completely the criminals documented their own guilt. Ashley's phone contained enough evidence to convict a small army. Dorothy's banking records showed months of preparation. Kevin's internet search history read like a textbook on financial fraud. They thought they were being clever, covering their tracks, planning for every contingency. Instead, they were creating an evidence trail that made prosecution almost automatic. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just giving people enough rope and watching them hang themselves. Emma started her senior year of high school last month. She's applying to colleges, thinking about engineering programs, which makes me incredibly proud. She's got my analytical mind, but none of my cynicism about people. The whole experience with Ashley hasn't made her suspicious or bitter. If anything, it's made her more confident in her own judgment. We talk about trust now, about how to evaluate people's motivations and actions rather than just accepting what they say. Not paranoia, but healthy skepticism. The difference between being cautious and being afraid. Emma understands that her mother made choices that hurt people, including her, and that those consequences are permanent. Ashley writes letters sometimes. They're delivered through her lawyer because of the no contact order, and I don't read them. Harrison reviews them to make sure they don't contain threats or attempts to manipulate Emma, then files them away. Whatever Ashley wants to say to me, she had 12 years of marriage to say it. The time for communication ended when she chose theft over honesty. The house feels different now, but not empty. Emma and I have dinner together most nights, actually talking instead of navigating around Ashley's mood or schemes. We watch movies, play chess, discuss her college applications. Normal family life without the undercurrent of deception I'd grown so accustomed to that I'd stopped noticing it. I've started dating again, carefully. A woman named Sarah who teaches mathematics at Emma's school. She knows the whole story. Federal trials are public record, and my case was covered extensively in local media. Sarah appreciates that I'm honest about the experience without being bitter or obsessed with it. Some people are defined by what happens to them. Others use what happens to them to become stronger. The licensing deals for my algorithm have exceeded every projection. 4 major companies now use the system, with 3 more in final negotiations. The revenue stream will support Emma's education, fund my actual retirement, and probably set up her children for financial security. Everything Ashley tried to steal has multiplied beyond her original targets. There's poetry in that timing. If she'd been patient, if she'd trusted our partnership instead of scheming for immediate gratification, she could have shared in something much bigger than $8 million. Instead, she chose the short-term crime over the long-term relationship and lost both. Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, investigate rather than ignore. Document everything, get proper legal help, and never underestimate the power of people's greed to destroy them. Sometimes the best defense against betrayal isn't building higher walls. It's giving betrayers enough space to reveal their true nature and enough rope to hang themselves. Because sometimes, when someone tries to steal your future, the most satisfying response isn't to fight them. It's to let them steal their own future instead, then live well enough that they can read about your success from prison. Justice served cold, with a side of irony, exactly the way revenge should taste. Ashley thought she could walk away with everything. Instead, those 3 words, transfer complete, completed her destruction instead of mine.